Tonight, you will close your bedroom door, pull the blanket up, and lie completely alone in the dark. And if you can't sleep, if your mind races, if anxiety creeps in at 2 a.m. and refuses to leave, most people assume something is wrong with them. But what if the problem isn't your mind? What if the problem is the room? For 300,000 years, no human on Earth slept alone. Not one. Every single night for the entire history of our species, humans slept pressed against other bodies. Their children, their siblings, the people they hunted with, the people they trusted with their lives. Sleep was not a private act, it was a communal one. And then, within the last few hundred years, something changed. We built walls, we built doors, we built the concept of a bedroom, and we called it progress. What we didn't know was that we had just run the largest uncontrolled psychological experiment in human history, with no control group, no exit plan, and no way to measure what we were losing. In 2007, anthropologist Carol Worthman at Emory University published a landmark paper reviewing sleep practices across 186 different human societies. Her findings were blunt. Solitary sleep, one person, one room, alone in the dark, was found in exactly one type of society: industrialized ones. Every other culture on Earth, across every continent, in every climate, in every type of social structure, slept together. The Hadza of Tanzania sleep in groups of 8 to 12 around a shared fire. The Balinese sleep in family clusters on shared mats. Indigenous groups across the Amazon sleep in communal hammocks close enough to touch. In rural Japan, co-sleeping between parents and children continues well into adolescence and is considered the biological norm. Worthman called solitary sleep a bizarre recent cultural experiment. Her words, not mine. Here's what most people don't understand. Group sleep wasn't just about warmth, though it was that too. It was a biological security system. Your nervous system, right now, is still running threat detection software that was written 300,000 years ago. And that software has one core assumption baked into it. If you are alone at night, you are in danger. In the ancient world, this was simply true. A human sleeping alone was a human a predator could take without anyone noticing. Group sleep meant someone was always partially alert. Someone always stirred when a branch snapped. Someone was always there. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have documented something called sentinel sleep, where members of a group cycle in and out of lighter sleep phases at different times throughout the night, creating a kind of natural early warning system. The group as a whole was never fully unconscious at the same time. Your body still expects this. When you sleep alone, your nervous system doesn't fully stand down. Some part of it stays listening, waiting, for the danger that your ancient programming says must be out there. Because you're alone. And alone at night meant death. In 2011, a study published in the journal Sleep found that people who reported chronic loneliness showed dramatically more micro-awakenings throughout the night. Brief moments where the brain surges back toward wakefulness without the person fully waking up. They weren't sleeping lightly because they were anxious. They were anxious because they were sleeping lightly. The loneliness itself was triggering a threat response. The brain interpreted social isolation as physical danger, and it responded the way it was built to respond to danger. It refused to fully sleep. The lead researcher, Leanne Carina, found that the effect held even when controlling for depression, stress, and every other variable they could measure. Loneliness alone predicted fragmented sleep. And here's where it gets darker. Fragmented sleep doesn't just make you tired, it degrades your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for emotional regulation, for rational decision-making, for keeping your impulses in check. One bad night of fragmented sleep reduces your emotional regulation by roughly 60%. One bad week begins to produce cognitive effects indistinguishable from mild traumatic brain injury. And most people in the modern world are sleeping alone, every single night, for decades. Now here's the part nobody talks about. Rates of anxiety disorders in the United States began climbing steeply in the mid-20th century. So did rates of depression. So did rates of insomnia. and so did rates of single occupancy households. In 1900, fewer than 5% of Americans lived alone. By 2020, it was over 28%. Nobody drew a straight line between these two things because nobody was looking for one. We assumed anxiety was caused by stress, by trauma, by brain chemistry, and sometimes it is. But researchers like Matthew Walker, author of Why We Sleep, argue that we have systematically ignored sleep quality as a root cause of the mental health crisis, and that we have ignored the social architecture of sleep almost entirely. We treated insomnia as a symptom. We never asked why the whole species suddenly couldn't sleep. In 2010, a meta-analysis published in PLOS Medicine reviewed data from 148 separate studies covering more than 300,000 participants across multiple countries. The conclusion was stark. People with stronger social connections had a 50% higher likelihood of survival than those with weak ones. The effect size was comparable to quitting smoking. Loneliness, they concluded, was not a mental health problem. It was a physical health problem. It increased systemic inflammation, it dysregulated cortisol, it suppressed immune function, and it destroyed sleep quality in ways that cascaded through every other system in the body. The mechanism, researchers believe, traces directly back to what your nervous system was built to expect. Proximity, warmth, the sound of someone else breathing in the dark. Your body uses those signals to know it is safe. When those signals are absent, it assumes the worst. Every night, for years, for decades, we do not mourn what we never knew we had. Most people alive today have never once slept the way every human who came before them slept. Surrounded, heard, close enough to reach out and touch someone in the dark. We built private bedrooms and called it civilization. We built the concept of sleeping alone and called it independence. And then we spent billions on sleeping pills, anxiety medication, and therapy, trying to fix a nervous system that isn't broken. It's just alone. For the first time in 300,000 years. It doesn't know why. And neither really do we.